What a weekend for sports fans in New Jersey and New York. We kicked it off on Friday with Team USA beating Paraguay 4-1. And then on Saturday, it was Knicks in five. The New York Knicks won the NBA Finals in Game 5 against the San Antonio Spurs. They were led by two New Jersey legends, Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns, as their team secured the first championship title since 1973. And then there was the long awaited first match of the World Cup played right here in East Rutherford. Morocco versus Brazil, that brought some 80,000 fans to MetLife Stadium. Among them was New Jersey Governor Mikey Sherrill, New York Governor Kathy Hochul, and New York City Mayor Zoran Mamdani. So, one game down, how did the planning agency score? Here to break down the important plays is Larry Higgs, transportation reporter for NJ.com. Larry, thanks so much for joining us. Here we are on Monday. Let's play Monday morning, so to speak, quarterback. Uh, let's talk about the 80,000 people who came into New Jersey, into MetLife Stadium, New York, New Jersey Stadium for the game. What went right when it comes to NJ Transit?
Well, I mean, the entire NJ Transit operation seems to have worked as they intended. They had 21,000 people, so obviously that's about a little more than half of what they expected. They were prepared to move 40,000 people, and by all reports, and we have reporters on the ground all over, and people who rode in on the train and what have you. It went very well. In fact, our NJ.com reporters said that Secaucus Junction had pretty much cleared out by 9:30 at night.
But of course, we've seen reporting where folks were saying, we can't believe that we're actually in America right now, just hordes of people clogged trying to get out of the game. It seemed like the getting out part was the hardest. Maybe for some who've never been to MetLife Stadium, don't understand what it really takes to get 80,000 people out of one location. That did feel like a surprise. Given all the events that happened there, was this just par for the course?
Well, the some of the problems, and again, this is what our folks who were standing there watching things said was ride shares had a lot of problems getting people out afterwards. One of those problems was due to cars being able to get back into the stadium area, which was geo-fenced. So, you couldn't have just anybody come in. Uber was the official ride share provider. So that was the big one of the big criticisms that we saw. Traffic was heavy, and of course, NJDOT warned about that. They even put out a map of traffic hotspots for people to guard against. And even Chris Calori, in his role as New Jersey Turnpike Authority executive director, said that there's going to be no magic carpet getting you in and out of the place. The same traffic that you see on game days and for major concerts at MetLife was going to happen. It was going to be amplified. In fact, NJDOT said treat this like a major storm event.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I want to just highlight this. 2 hours before the game on Saturday, Uber's senior director of public policy and communications, Josh Gold, sent out a post on X saying Uber can't accommodate the demand. Surge pricing and event surcharges will be in effect to encourage more drivers to come into New Jersey, but plan ahead and take NJ Transit if you can. Even Uber saying, please take an alternate route. Part of the thing here is that you have to go out the way you came in. Like you said, Chris Calori's been out there, a vocal voice for this, saying you might not like the way you came in, but you don't have a different option on the way out. Do you think that with all the congestion and the clogging we saw with rideshare, perhaps more people end up taking NJ Transit for the next games?
Well, and in fact, I have those questions into NJ Transit right now. One interesting thing, because he did lead a media tour on Thursday of the stadium, and one of the things that was mentioned was that when he said he wants people to come in on the same mode, he doesn't, he didn't want somebody to switch from committee bus to trains. However, they do have an apparatus set up where you could buy a ticket to go out on the train. So if you came in on an Uber, you could buy a ticket on site at the stadium, and they'll sell it to you as long as they have capacity. So in other words, if they were up to 40,000 people, they're not going to sell you a ticket. But for Saturday's match, which was 21,000, they somebody could have bought a ticket.
So, to be clear, if someone is buying a ticket at that time, regardless if it's at the end of the game, they're still paying that $98 price tag, though, yes?
As far as I know, yeah. One of the things NJ Transit said was, and I don't think it was widely publicized, we did write about it, but that $98 pass is kind of like all inclusive. So it's like an all you eat can eat buffet on a cruise ship. This allows you to ride the entire system for that day without having to pay extra train fare. So if you're coming to World Cup from Morris County and you have to take the Morrison Essex line, or you're coming from Central Jersey and you have to take a 116 bus, you don't have to pay the extra fare for that. If you're taking a light rail to get to however you need to get to Secaucus Junction, you're not paying for that light rail. So that's one feature that I don't think was widely publicized, that it's all inclusive. One
Yeah, it's a
fare,
great
and you get
point.
used to like a pass.
One fare to get you completely to the game. But here's the question:
Right.
how much did that $98 price tag impact the way that folks tried to get to the stadium? And just let me add by saying that there was video that I saw of people walking down, I think it was Patterson Plank Road, that stretch of
Mhm.
120 over there, to get to the game. And we'd heard that you can't walk to the game, but I'm curious how much that train ticket did impact the ridership from what you can see, from what folks on the ground could see.
Well, and I mean, a lot of people complained about affordability. They compared it to other places. But a lot of those other places, for example, in Philadelphia, they're a subway ride away from the link. That's a 390 price, and Septic was able to get a sponsor to come in and to pick up some of that. So there were some free rides provided. But it's a different story because the link is also walkable. One of the things that was organized were old school FIFA style fan parades from Center City, and also one that went along the Delaware River, because it's only a couple of miles to walk to the link, where MetLife Stadium is literally, as many people have said, good or bad, it's in the middle of a swamp in Jersey, so you're not going to walk down Route 3. Patterson Plank Road is a different story. There were businesses that were apparently selling parking for a discount rate of $100 on Patterson Plank Road. Now, what I haven't heard is how those people got access into the stadium. Whether they walked through the ride share area and then just walked that last mile and a half along with all the other people who came in Ubers, or not.
And we know that there were many people at the end of the game who were told if you hadn't already booked an Uber, they simply, or any type of ride share, they simply were not going to be allowed to get to that pickup point, another area where folks felt like they were stranded at the game. Just a few seconds left. What do you think are the biggest takeaways for the transit system, overall for the host committee, as we go into the next game?
Buy your train tickets. They proved that it worked. So, that might be the best solution if you don't want to sit in traffic. The
Yep.
train has got a dedicated right of way, transit way, which is the bus rapid transit system between MetLife and Secaucus Junction, also run by NJ Transit as a dedicated right of way. So,
Yeah.
that, not to paraphrase their slogan, but that may be the way to go.
All right, we got to leave it there. Larry Higgs, that may be the way to go. Transportation reporter with NJ Advanced Media. Thank you so much.
Thank you.